If you want Apple CarPlay or Android Auto in an older car, one of the easiest ways is with a portable dashboard screen, like this, the W703 from Hardwire. But instead of plugging it into the cigarette lighter and having cables everywhere, in this video I'm going to show you how to install and hardwire a screen along with a reversing camera, and these principles will be very similar in many other vehicles too. Hardwire provided the screen and reversing camera so I could make this video. I've made a full separate review video of the W703 where you can see the ins and outs of it and how powerful these little screens are for tech-sparse cars. Link in the description for that, just along with affiliate links to everything you need for this install. Finally, the work I'm about to do is for educational and informational purposes only. This is not professional automotive advice, and you're responsible for any work you perform on your own vehicle. If you're not sure, you should consult a qualified professional. There are three main stages to this install. First, we'll mount the screen onto the dashboard and route the power cable. Second, we'll hardwire the screen into the fuse box so it powers on with the ignition. And third, we'll install and wire the reversing camera, including connecting it to the reversing light so the screen automatically switches to the camera view. Once everything is wired up, we'll test the system and tidy the wiring so the dashboard stays clean. And, as the 703 doubles up as a dash cam too, thanks to a rotating front camera coupled with the rear camera, I've also included a bonus section at the end on setting up parking mode, so your vehicle is covered from bumps and break-ins when you're parked. The first step is deciding where to place the screen on the dashboard. With portable CarPlay screens like the W703, you want a position that is easy to see while driving, doesn't block your view of the road, and still allows access to your controls and vents. The best place is usually just above the center console, and try to get the screen as close to the windscreen as possible to prevent glare and get a better view of the road. The 703 comes with a suction cup mount as well as a sticky pad mount, and both are adjustable to get the angle you want. I prefer a sticky pad mount as it takes up less room, but it's really up to you and the space you have in your vehicle. Before attaching it permanently, it's a good idea to sit in the driver's seat, hold the screen in position and check visibility. Once you're happy with the position, make sure the dashboard surface is clean to ensure the adhesive sticks properly. Then remove the backing from the adhesive pad and press the mount firmly into the dashboard. Give it a good push for around 30 seconds so it bonds properly. You can now attach the screen to the mount and adjust the viewing angle. With that done, it's time to power the screen. Dashboard screens like the 703 come with a 12-volt power cable as standard. This is great and very easy to get the screen up and running, but it takes up use of the 12-volt cigarette lighter socket and doesn't allow for parking mode to be used either. Hardwiring a device, also called tapping fuses, refers to connecting a device directly to your vehicle's fuse box, usually the internal one, so it draws power from an existing circuit rather than using the 12-volt cigarette lighter socket. Hardwiring might sound intimidating, but it's actually a straightforward process once you understand the steps. There are four main stages: finding the correct fuses, checking the power direction, installing the fuse taps, and connecting the ground wire. Besides the screen and a hardwire kit, you'll need the following tools to complete the hardwiring segment of this video. A digital multimeter to measure the voltage of your fuses. Fuse taps, which are very often included with the hardwire kit. Trim tools to help hide wires without damaging your vehicle trim. And possibly a pair of long nose pliers if you don't have a fuse puller in your vehicle. The interior fuse box in most vehicles is located either behind a panel near your steering wheel, like in my Nissan NV200 van here, inside the glove box, or sometimes in a completely different location altogether, like behind the steering wheel in this Peugeot 107, which requires 2 screws to be removed to access it. The hardwire kit I'm using isn't one of Hardwire's, as the one they sell only has the red accessory fuse wire and black ground wire, which will only power the screen while the vehicle is on. To use parking mode, you need a permanent live wire too, which is this yellow one. You can grab a hardwire kit for £10 or £20 or dollars online, and I've put links below to them too. Going back to the wires, red is ACC or accessory power. This connects to a fuse that only has power when the ignition is on. Yellow is B+ or constant battery power, also known as a permanent live, which connects to a fuse that always has power. And black is your ground, which typically sits under a bare metal bolt and doesn't require a fuse. So, which fuses to choose? You want to tap fuses that aren't critical to driving, such as the radio for an accessory fuse, or the boot or trunk, door lock or interior light for the constant fuse. Never tap into the ECU, airbag or ABS fuses. And before you go any further, it's at this point that it's good to check as best as possible that you can physically tap the fuses in your vehicle. By that I mean that the fuse taps, which are at a right angle, aren't blocked by anything around them. Sometimes they are, such as in this Peugeot 107, and it's good to check before you get too far down the line and waste your time. You can find out what circuits your fuses protect by checking out the back of the fuse box cover, which usually has a full list, or by looking in the car manual, which is often online these days. To identify which fuses are accessory and which are constant, we'll use a multimeter set to 20 volts in the DC range. With the engine off and the key out of the ignition, ground the black probe on an uncoated clean bit of metal attached directly to the vehicle, such as a bolt like I've got on the door here. Then, work your way around the fuses in the fuse box with the red probe, touching it to the exposed metal dots on the backs of the fuses. If your multimeter shows a voltage of around 12, then you've got a fuse that uses constant power, or is suitable for the B+ wire to connect to. You can probe either dots on the fuse to find this out, as both will display a voltage if there's one present, as power flows through the fuse. Next, it's time to find the accessory power fuse. If you've found fuses that don't show a reading when the ignition is off, then they are accessory fuses. Once you've found a fuse you like the look of, test it with the ignition off, then put the key in and the ignition on and test again. Hopefully a voltage of around 12 will register on the multimeter, but remember once again not to be choosing any fuses that are vital to the car. For this install, my chosen accessory fuse is a 10 amp audio and mirror fuse. And for the constant, I'm choosing to use one of the empty slots. These will work just fine, but I did have my eye on another fuse to tap, however the fuse tap just wouldn't sit properly. Either way, neither of the fuse slots I'll be using are vital to the car's running. Once you've decided, you can then remove the relevant fuses from the fuse box. Fuses are tightly packed and often in hard to reach places, but many vehicles have a fuse puller like this one. If you don't, gently using a pair of long nose pliers will do the job. At this point, you can see which size of fuse tap fits your vehicle. There are usually 4 types of fuse tap included in a Hardwire kit. Mini, which this car takes, Micro 2, Low Profile Mini and ATO, which cover the majority of vehicles, though there are 2 others, Maxi and Micro 3, which you may come across. In this Hardwire kit, the taps each have a 5 amp fuse in. The next step is to find out which side of the fuse slot the current comes in, as this is important to getting the hardwiring kit working properly. To do this, insert the red probe into one side of the slot you've just removed the fuse from, with the black probe grounded on the bare metal again, and then check the other side. For the accessory fuse you'll need the ignition on, whereas the constant battery fuse slot will show power whether the ignition is on or off. Make a note of which side has power and which doesn't. Standard automotive blade fuses are not directional, however fuse taps are, and only work in a specific way. The outer prong is the entry for the voltage, whereas the inner prong is where the voltage exits. That means that the outer prong needs to connect to the side of the fuse slot which shows a power reading, so when inserted the fuse tap completes the circuit. You can now place the accessory fuse you removed from the vehicle into the red ACC fuse tap and the constant battery fuse into the yellow B+ tap. Make sure they're seated firmly for a good connection. It's now time to insert the taps into the vehicle and, with the hardwiring kit to hand and the keys out of the ignition, connect the red tap with the red wire and do the same with the yellow. All the fuse taps I've come across have had nice male to female connectors, which creates a firm connection and can sometimes require crimping or pressing them together to create a lasting connection. Protecting the connection is also important, and your taps may have plastic sheaths or built-in covers such as I have here, though some require a heat gun to shrink the plastic tubing to create a seal around the connectors. Ultimately, you don't want any metal exposed or to be able to become exposed in the future. Be sure to refer to the instructions of your device to find out whether they recommend crimping the connections or the use of heat. With these plastic sheaths to protect the connectors, I found the best way was just to layer one over the other. Before inserting the fuse taps into the vehicle, it's recommended to disconnect the negative terminal of the battery. However, if you do this too, you'll be resetting your stereo, so will likely require a radio code, which is often found in your car manual, but do check this first. Ensure your fuse taps are up the right way you determined earlier, and insert the red wire into the accessory fuse slot and the yellow wire into the constant power slot. Up to this point, we've neglected the third wire coming off the hardwiring kit, and that's the black ground wire. This needs to be slid under a grounded bare metal bolt, and I've found one here so I can tighten that in place. Once the device is grounded, the circuit is complete, so if done correctly, the device will start up when you turn the ignition on. Although they usually do as standard, double check that your hardwire kit has a built-in sleep mode or minimum voltage limiter like this one does, otherwise you'll eventually have a flat battery. With the 4 steps to tapping a fuse completed, there's one final thing to do to finish the job: routing the wire to your device and hiding it. However, if you intend to install the reversing camera as well, then you may want to finish that first, so you can run both wires up through the dashboard at the same time. The reversing camera I'll be installing is one available with the 703, and it transmits in HD quality and is waterproof too, so can be mounted to the outside of your vehicle if you like. Reversing cameras for dashboard screens are usually connected via a 2.5 or 3.5mm jack on the end of a very long cable, so it can reach to the back of the vehicle and carry the video signal back. If you were just to plug this into the screen and put the vehicle into reverse, it wouldn't work, as the device has no way of knowing what the car is doing. But there's a small red trigger wire, and this is the clever part of the setup. By connecting this wire to the reversing light wire, the screen will automatically switch to the rear camera whenever the car is put into reverse and the reversing light bulb receives power. In my opinion, it's well worth doing to get the full functionality of the screen. Now, I have previously tapped the reversing light in this Nissan NV200, so for this installation, I'm going to move over to a Peugeot 107 so I can show a fresh install and a new method of tapping the wire. To connect the red trigger wire, first locate the side of your vehicle with the reversing light and then see where the wires connect to. You'll most likely need to remove the rear light, which often requires a socket and wrench so you can see the wires you're dealing with and which one goes into the rear light bulb. In the installs I've done, the reversing light wire is usually red, however that's not always the case, so it's worth being 100% sure before committing to any work. To confirm the correct wire, use a multimeter and set it to 20 volts in the DC range. I have a 3-stage test for making sure you've got the correct wire. First, with the key out of the ignition, press the positive red probe into the reversing light cable and the black negative ground probe to a piece of bare metal on the car. There should be no reading on the multimeter. Second, with the ignition on but not the full engine, put the vehicle in reverse gear, confirming it visually as the reversing light should now be on, and run the same test, and this time it should show around 12 volts on the multimeter. Third and finally, leave the ignition on but take the vehicle out of reverse gear and put it in neutral. The multimeter should show nothing once again as the reversing bulb isn't getting any power. With the wire now confirmed, make sure a decent bit of it is easily accessible for the connection, and it's time to attach the red trigger wire of the reversing camera onto it. We're not simply connecting 2 wires together at the ends, but adding a wire to the middle of another, so standard lever connectors won't do the job and crimping isn't ideal. I've previously used T-taps for a reversing camera install and haven't had any problems at all, but they aren't really the best product for the job, as they expose quite a bit of the wire. Posi-taps are my choice this time, and although slightly more expensive at around £10 for a pack of 6 at the time of filming, they are a better option in my opinion, because they do less damage to the wire, have a strong, screw-tight connection, are reusable, and are less likely to come loose. I haven't covered every connection possibility here, and when dealing with electrics especially, I'd always encourage you to do your own research or consult a professional. Back to the wiring, if the end of the red trigger wire isn't well exposed, then you may want to use wire strippers to create a fresh end. Twist the wires together, then, with the posi-tap unscrewed, slip the posi-tap end over the exposed wire strands. Now screw the remainder of the posi-tap body back onto the top piece, and this locks the wire in place. With that secure, you can unscrew the bottom portion of the posi-tap connector. Slip the slit over your reversing light wire at the point you want to make the connection, and then simply screw the posi-tap together. The pin will pierce the wire and you'll have made the connection. Before hiding the wiring and mounting the camera, it's worth testing everything works correctly. Turn on the ignition but not the engine and check that the CarPlay screen powers up. Then put the car into reverse. If everything is wired correctly, the screen should automatically switch to the reversing view camera, and of course the reversing light should come on as usual. Next, decide where you want to mount the camera. Most people install it above the number plate or near the boot or trunk handle, though you could stick it to the inside of your rear window. Cameras vary, but most have an adjustable hinge so you can mount it in a variety of positions and angles, and this can be tightened as needed. I'm installing it on the inside of this rear window, so we'll just be sticking it in place using the included adhesive pad, but if you're mounting it to the rear trim, then you'll need a stronger but irreversible hold by using the included screws. I wouldn't recommend screwing into any metal, as this will encourage rust. Next, we need to hide the long camera cable into the vehicle. If I had installed this camera on the outside of the car, then I would look for any existing holes or rubber wiring grommets I could work the wire through into the inside of the vehicle. Many cars also have rubber tubes that carry wires from the boot or trunk lid into the body of the vehicle, but these are often tightly packed and well sealed. It's worth a look anyway. Feeding cables around can be fiddly, so you'll need to use some creativity to find the best way that works for your mounting position and where you need to route the wires to in your particular vehicle. Once the cable is inside the car, run it along the interior trim towards the front of the vehicle. You can hide it behind door sill trim, carpet edges or interior panels, but be sure not to block any airbags, and the general rule is to follow existing wiring. Eventually bring it forward to the dashboard area, working it up through the dashboard alongside the hardwired power cable to where the screen is mounted. The goal is to keep everything hidden so the installation looks as clean and factory-like as possible. Finally, plug it in and you're sorted. As promised, this section is all about parking mode, which is one of the bonuses of hardwiring a device. Parking mode registers bumps and knocks, waking the screen up from sleep mode and turning on the cameras to capture the incident. If your screen doesn't have a recording camera, however, then you won't have a parking mode on your device. As with many screens and dash cams, parking mode will only show in the W703 settings when hardwired. But if you've made it this far in the video, then it already is. So tap the setting and you can adjust your parking mode sensitivity. But other devices such as dedicated dash cams often have many other options to choose from, including quality settings and time-lapse functions. So that's the screen, hardwire and reversing install complete. It is quite a lot of work, but since I did it for the first time, I've never looked back. If you followed this video and done it for yourself, then congrats. You now have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto in your car, plus a reversing camera that activates automatically when you reverse. Once again, I've got affiliate links to everything you need for this install in the description below, including CarPlay screens, so do check them out, as well as the full review video of the W703 if you want to find out more. Also, if you have any questions, please drop them below and I'll do my very best to answer them. Finally, if you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing for more car tech installs, upgrades and how-to guides. Thanks for watching.